Saudi Arabia says it's intercepted a ballistic missile near an airport in the capital, Riyadh. The Saudi Air Force destroyed the missile northeast of the city. Houthi rebels have claimed they fired it. Saudi state media says no injuries or damage have been reported. Let's get some details from TRT World's Middle East reporter Abubakr Al Shamahi, who's right here. Is it surprising at all that the Houthis would even have this kind of missile that would travel that distance towards the capital of Saudi Arabia?
Well, this isn't the first missile strike or the first missile attack by the Houthi rebels in Yemen. We have to remember that when we're talking about the Houthi rebel group, sometimes that kind of glosses over what their capabilities are. And the fact of the matter is that the Houthis, their main ally, is the ex-Yemeni president Ali Abdullah Saleh, who ruled Yemen for 33 years, built up a stockpile of these Scud missiles. And so, seen as their ally had the missiles under his control, that seems to have now passed over into the Houthi control, and they've been able to spend the last few years firing them over occasionally at targets into Saudi Arabia. Now, most of the targets have often been areas quite close to the Saudi border. This is one of the few targets that's been able to, or that they've been able to at least attempt to attack way far further inland into Saudi Arabia. There have been some attempts to strike near Riyadh, like the one on today, and you also have the ones that attempted to strike targets near Mecca, Medina and Yanbu as well on the coast, approximately around the same distance. But as you said, this does go quite deep into Saudi Arabian territory.
So we have Saad Hariri, the Lebanese now former Prime Minister, who is backed by the United States and Saudi Arabia. And then he resigns. A few hours later, the Houthi rebels, who are backed by Iran, fire a missile into Saudi Arabia. Do you see it as a coincidence, the timing?
Well, of course, unless you actually have the facts of the matter, it's quite hard to say. And if we do talk again in generalities, you have to say that this isn't the first missile strike, like we've said, that the Houthis have attempted to hit Saudi Arabia with. But of course, the timing is interesting. This has come only a few hours after Saad al-Hariri announced his resignation. And of course, if we look at the wider situation in the region, you've got Iran on one hand, you've got the Saudis on the other hand. You've got tension really increasing between the two. The Saudis, of course, accuse Iran of being behind the Houthi rebels. This is why the Saudis say they intervened in Yemen to stop the Houthis from taking over Yemen, and in their eyes to stop Iran from taking over Yemen. Of course, Iran deny that they support the Houthis to that degree, but acknowledge their support for them at least to an extent. So you've got that. But of course, you've also got to remember that just on Wednesday, there was a Saudi coalition airstrike that hit northern Yemen, hit Sada province, killed a number of people there. And so, in effect, this could be a response to that as well, because yes, the wider issues are important to the Houthi rebels and they do see themselves as part of the Iranian camp. But first and foremost, it's about the war in Yemen, about the conflict on the ground, and about saying to the Saudis and to the wider region that they still do have the capability to at least threaten the Saudis and their allies, such as the United Arab Emirates.
And we've had reaction from Iran concerning the resignation of Saad Hariri, saying the allegations that you, sir, have made are totally false. And now we've had Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, talking about Saad Hariri's resignation and warning again of the dangers that he believes Iran poses in terms of Arab affairs. Although that's a given, isn't it? Netanyahu is always going to take any excuse to criticize Iran.
Well, it does appear that at least behind the scenes, Netanyahu, Israel are now closer to the Saudi and the UAE position, and that's because of this shared opposition to Iran. All these countries see Iran as the biggest threat in the region and not each other anymore. Now, there was a kind of an upturn in rhetoric before the last war that Israel entered in Lebanon in 2006. Rafiq al-Hariri, Saad al-Hariri's father, of course, assassinated in 2005. But things are different this time. You've got the war in Syria next door. Any Israeli intervention into Lebanon, any Israeli war in Lebanon will, in effect, become part of that wider conflict in Syria, which, of course, includes the Russian, includes Turkey, includes all these various different militant groups on the ground. So it's a much more complicated scenario for them. And, of course, Hezbollah are much stronger than they were in 2006.
Really appreciate the analysis, Abubakr. Thanks for coming in.